I was 22 when I took the job, fresh out of college with a degree in early childhood education and in between full-time gigs. I picked up part-time work through a babysitting agency. Most of the jobs were pretty standard: kids who needed watching after school, date nights for wealthy couples, the usual. But the Whitmore job, it was different. It came through with a note attached: isolated location, 1 child, overnight sitting required, pay above average. There was also a warning: not for first-time sitters. The Whitmores lived about 45 minutes outside of town in a colonial-style home nestled on the edge of dense woods. Their land was massive and secluded. The house looked like it belonged in a magazine: 3 stories tall, weathered white paint, black shutters, and a creaking wraparound porch. I drove up a long gravel road and parked near the rusted gate that didn't fully close. The mom, Claudia, met me at the door. She was elegant, maybe late 40s, but looked tired in that way that goes deeper than physical exhaustion. She introduced herself, then her son, Jacob. Jacob was 8, thin, pale, quiet. He didn't smile when he saw me. He just clutched a stuffed rabbit and stared at my necklace for a long time. When I asked if he liked animals, he said, "Not anymore." Claudia explained that they had recently moved from the city after a difficult year, though she didn't elaborate. Her husband, Daniel, was polite but distant. He barely looked at me while Claudia went over instructions. She showed me Jacob's bedtime routine, where the snacks were, and the emergency contacts. The only strange thing she said was, "If you hear knocking at night, don't open the door, no matter what." I thought she was joking. She wasn't. The Whitmores left at 7. Jacob ate in silence and barely touched his mac and cheese. He asked if he could sleep in the living room instead of his bedroom. I said sure, thinking maybe he was just nervous in the new place. We set up blankets on the couch and watched part of a movie before he fell asleep. By 10, the house was dark. I read in the kitchen with the window open, listening to the crickets. The woods outside felt suffocating, thick and endless. There were no other houses nearby and no cell service, just land. Around midnight, it started. A soft knock at the front door. 3 slow taps. I froze. My first thought was that the Whitmores had forgotten something, but when I checked my phone, there were no missed calls. I walked to the front door and peered through the curtain. No one. The porch was empty, dimly lit by a single yellow bulb. I chalked it up to nerves, old house noises, maybe a branch hitting the door. Then came the second knock. Same pattern, 3 slow taps, this time louder, more deliberate. I turned off the kitchen light and crouched low. The living room was silent except for the ticking of an antique clock on the mantel. Jacob stirred in his sleep but didn't wake. I tiptoed to the door again, looked through the peephole. Still no one. But the doormat was missing. That shook me. I was sure it had been there before. I remembered wiping my feet on it. I locked the deadbolt and drew the curtain shut, and slowly backed away. At 12:34, the third knock came. It wasn't at the front door this time. It came from upstairs, I swear to God. It was faint, but it echoed down the stairwell, like someone tapping on a window pane from the second floor. Jacob sat up wide-eyed. "He's here," he whispered. I asked who was here. Jacob didn't answer, just pulled a blanket up over his head and started to cry. I took the flashlight from my bag and slowly climbed the stairs. The second floor had a long hallway with a door at the end, Jacob's bedroom. I stepped carefully, the old wood creaking underfoot. I passed the bathroom, then the guest room, all dark. When I reached Jacob's room, I saw it. The window was open, not just unlocked, open. The curtains blew in the night breeze, but the screen was still intact. No signs of forced entry. I shut the window, locked it, and turned to leave. That's when I saw it. Above Jacob's bed was a drawing. Dozens of them, actually, taped to the wall. Crayon sketches. all of the same figure. A tall black silhouette with no face, always outside the window, always watching. I ran back downstairs. Jacob was sitting up now, gripping the rabbit so tight I thought he might rip it. He asked, "Can we go outside? He doesn't like the woods." I told him absolutely not. He shook his head. "He gets in through the walls." At 1:17 a.m., the power went out. The hum of the refrigerator stopped. The clock stopped ticking. Everything fell into silence. Then came the fourth knock. It was right behind me. I turned slowly, flashlight beam trembling, and aimed it at the hallway. No one. But the basement door was open. I know I hadn't opened it. Jacob screamed, not words, just a raw, terrified sound. I grabbed him and we bolted outside. I didn't care about the Whitmore's instructions. I didn't care about anything except getting away from that house. We stayed in my car until sunrise. The Whitmores pulled up around 6:30 a.m. Claudia looked pale when she saw us. Daniel walked straight into the house without asking anything. I told her what happened, but she didn't act surprised. She just said, "It's worse in the winter." I quit that job. That was 5 years ago, and I still think about Jacob sometimes, and the drawings, and that sound of knocking from the walls. I never babysat again. I was 16 when I first started babysitting for the Maddens. They lived just outside of town, on a stretch of winding road where the streetlights stopped and the forest pressed close to both sides of the road. Not remote enough to feel isolated, but enough that if something went wrong, you need a solid 5 minutes to scream before anyone heard you. Mr. and Mrs. Madden were both in their early 40s. He was some kind of consultant, always traveling, and she was an interior designer. Very Pinterest chic, perfect hair, perfect smile. Their house looked like a magazine cover. White and gray color palette, fancy lighting, furniture that wasn't meant to be sat on. They had one kid, Owen, 2 years old, quiet, and if I'm being honest, unsettling. That first night, Mrs. Madden walked me through the routine. Dinner was already in the fridge. Owen needed to be in bed by 8 sharp. She emphasized that more than once. She showed me the baby monitor, one of those nice ones with a little screen, and then paused before saying something I'll never forget. "If the screen goes black, don't worry. It does that sometimes." That was weird, but I smiled and nodded because the job paid $25 an hour and they usually didn't come home until after midnight. The first night went fine. Owen barely said a word, just followed me around like a duckling. When I put him to bed, he didn't fuss, didn't cry, just laid there and stared at me with those too big of eyes. I flipped on the baby monitor when I got back downstairs and watched him lie in bed, perfectly still. The screen glitched once or twice, nothing major. By the third night, things started to get weird. It was a Friday, Mr. Madden was gone, and Mrs. Madden had some charity gala downtown. She left in a hurry, looking flustered. That night, as I was cleaning up the dishes, I heard a loud thump from upstairs. Not just a kid jumping on the bed thump. This was heavier. I paused, watched the monitor. Owen was sitting up in bed, looking off screen, like toward the corner of the room. I turned the volume up. Nothing. I waited. Then, just as I leaned closer, the screen went black. At first I thought maybe the battery had died, but the light was still on. It was on, it just wasn't showing anything. And I remembered what Mrs. Madden said. "If the screen goes black, don't worry." But now I was worried. I went upstairs. I was quiet. I peeked into Owen's room and found him lying back down, eyes closed, like nothing had happened. The closet door was open. I was sure it had been shut earlier. I closed it, said, "Good night, buddy," more to make myself feel better than for him. He didn't answer. The next morning, Mrs. Madden texted me and asked how the night went. I told her about the screen glowing black and the thump upstairs. She didn't respond for almost an hour. Then all she said was, "Thank you, we'll see you again next week." The next weekend, Saturday night, she had me come back. This time I noticed something I'd missed before. There was a door off the hallway upstairs that had a little padlock on it. It looked old, scratched up, like it had been there forever. I'd assumed it was a storage closet. But that night, after putting Owen to bed, I walked past it and I swear I heard something shuffle behind it. Something heavy. I stood there for a solid minute, holding my breath, telling myself it was just my imagination, that maybe there were rats in the wall or something. But that wasn't the noise rats made. It was more like someone slowly dragging something across a wooden floor. I ran back downstairs. I turned on the baby monitor. It showed Owen in bed, then the screen flickered, and for half a second, no more, I saw something in the corner of the screen. Something tall, slouched, watching him. Then black again. I bolted upstairs, but when I got to his room, he was still there, in bed, alone. The next day, I asked my mom if she knew anything about the Maddens. She frowned, said she didn't know them personally, but had heard rumors. The previous owners of that house had lost a child, a boy, drowned in the tub, supposedly. I asked her what year, but she couldn't remember. A week later, I was back. I told myself I was being paranoid, that there was a logical explanation, but that night changed everything. Around 9 p.m., Owen started crying. That was the first time he'd ever really cried, like terrified crying. I sprinted upstairs. He was sitting in the corner, not in his bed, pointing at the closet, the same closet that had been wide open again. I rushed to him, picked him up. When I looked inside the closet, I expected nothing, but this time, I saw something. In the very back, just barely lit from the hallway light, was what looked like the edge of a shoe, an adult shoe. I froze. Then something moved. I screamed and slammed the door shut and ran. I didn't even grab my bag. I just grabbed Owen and ran to the front porch where I called 911. The Maddens didn't answer their phones. When the police arrived, they went upstairs, found no one. But in that closet, behind a false wall, they found an old crawl space. Inside were empty beer bottles, food wrappers, and a sleeping bag. Someone had been living in there, watching the kid, watching me. They never caught whoever it was. The Maddens claimed they had no idea. They moved out a few months later. The house sat empty for a long time after that. I haven't babysat since. And sometimes, in the middle of the night, when I think about that monitor going black, I wonder, how many nights was he in there, standing just out of view? I was 19 when I took the job. A family friend hooked me up, said it was easy money. Just a Thursday night gig, babysitting a 10-year-old boy while his parents went to a dinner party. Big house, safe neighborhood, well-behaved kid, sounded perfect. The boy's name was Adam. He was quiet, polite, wore a little clip-on tie for no reason. The house was huge, it was spotless, and eerily silent, like it had been staged for a real estate listing. No family photos, no mess, no warmth. Just gray couches, white walls, and that smell of lemon cleaner that stings the back of your throat. Adam offered me red wines within 5 minutes of meeting me. He grabbed them from a drawer in the kitchen, one of those long plastic tubs, the kind you only see at the movie theaters. He didn't eat any himself, just watched me as I chewed, smiling. I asked if he had homework, and he said no. I asked if he wanted to watch a movie. He said no. Do you want to play a game or something? He nodded, finally. Let's do secrets, he said. I laughed. Like truth or dare? No, just secrets. I tell you one, then you tell me one. It was harmless at first. His favorite teacher had a lazy eye. He once fed a green bean to the class hamster and it died. Then it got weirder. My dad doesn't like the way I blink, he said. I asked what he meant. He said it's wrong, that it's not natural. He keeps trying to show me how. He demonstrated. overly slow, mechanical blinking, like a malfunctioning animatronic. I didn't know what to say. I chuckled awkwardly. "My turn," he said. "Your secret." I told him I once cheated on a math test in 8th grade. It felt safe. He didn't blink at that one, just kept staring. Then he said, "My mom gets really tired sometimes, so she lies in the bathtub with the water off and pretends she's not alive." I stared at him, tried to change the subject. "Do you want another red vine?" He shook his head. "You had 3, that's enough." I hadn't told him how many I'd eaten. At some point I asked if he wanted to play outside. He said he couldn't. "I'm not allowed past the second hedge." "Why?" "They said I might get picked up again." "Again?" He didn't answer. At around 9, I texted his parents to ask when they'd be back. No response. The kid asked if I wanted a tour of the house. I said sure. The upstairs hallway was lined with closed doors. One of them was his room. The others? "They're all off limits," he said, "except this one." He opened the last door on the right. There was a second bedroom, no windows, a mattress on the floor, a mirror with no frame, one sad-looking lamp. "Sometimes I sleep here instead," he said. "Why?" "Because the camera doesn't work in here." "What camera?" He pointed to the corner of the ceiling. I looked up and saw nothing. "It used to be there," he said. "Now it's in the smoke detector in the living room." I laughed. I thought he was messing with me. But when I got back downstairs, I laughed. I thought he was messing with me. But when I got back downstairs, I looked. There was a little red light inside the smoke detector. I opened the hallway closet. Nothing in there but board games, light bulbs, and 4 more tubs of red vines, unopened, all the same expiration date. When his parents finally returned at 11:22 p.m., the dad was flushed and smiling too wide. The mom was glassy-eyed, clutching her purse like it was an anchor. They both thanked me over and over, like I'd just saved their lives. On the way out, the dad pulled me aside. "Adam's sensitive," he said, "but he's getting better. The structure helps." I nodded and tried to leave. Then he added, "He offered you the candy, right? That's a good sign." I asked why, and he winked. "He only offers it to people he likes. The others never got any." That night I couldn't sleep. Something about it all kept turning in my head. The windowless room, the red light, the candy. So I Googled their address. The first link was from a local news article from 2 years ago. Child abduction. A different boy. Same street number. The name of the family? Different. But the picture of the house was identical, and in the background, on the porch, was Adam. Younger, smiling, holding a tub of red vines.